Hi guys, so today I'll be showing you guys how my students and I use Notion to organize our notes for the thing around your neck. And some things that we'll be touching base on in this video is how back when I was in year 12, how I use Notion to help me get a pretty sexy study score. And, oh, so gross. Anyways, and I'll also be teaching you guys how I would approach writing an essay from start to finish, from brainstorming all the way to writing a sample paragraph. Okay, so let me start share screening first. So this is my year 12, oh, wrong screen. Okay, this is my year 12 Notion database. So we have here the 3 areas of study, and basically if I go into each one of them, I'll have different notes, different assignments that we had to complete in class. And basically something like this was answering a lot of questions that the teacher gave us. And what this does is it starts formulating your own views based off the topic. An important thing that I did was because Rear Window is a film, right? So basically what I did was I watched the entire film, and let me try and find it. Film analysis. Found a bunch of different quotes and did practice analysis for each one of these quotes. And that helped me basically help me remember quotes, first of all, and it also forms a better understanding of the film in general, which is really useful when it comes to actually writing essays. Another thing that I had was, instead of writing an essay for all of these, because that's not fun, basically what I did was complete plans or draft plans for all these different topics, and we did a lot of these in class. So what I would recommend, if you've sort of learned the text a little bit, but you're not confident enough to start writing essays, especially with a 1 hour time limit, then I'll suggest maybe practicing doing draft plans, coming up with your contention, coming up with your arguments, and then sort of, thinking, what evidence can I put into the arguments? And that will help you, if you do this for different topics across the board, that will help you, 1, get a better understanding of the text, and 2, you're going to get faster at it. You're going to get better at coming up with contentions. And so I think this is a really important tip if you want to do well in VCE English. It's to put in the effort to do these plans, because I think this is the most effective way to get better at coming up with, quickly being able to think quickly and come up with your ideas almost immediately as soon as you enter the exam. And another thing that I did for, I think, Never Let Me Go and Start Zealand, this is comparative. I don't think you guys have this anymore, so it will be a bit different. Basically, what I did was I would, within my class, we worked on a Google Doc, so everyone's paragraphs was on there, and our teacher would make comments and correction on every single person's paragraph. And I know this might sound scary to a lot of you guys, but this was one of the best and most effective ways for us as a class to do better together. Okay, so what I did was I literally copied and pasted my other teammates or my other classmates' essays that I thought were really good. And I started thinking about, okay, how do I, taking their ideas, getting some inspiration, not stealing them, but getting some inspiration, seeing how they write, or what sort of quotes do they use, and then sort of trying to merge that into my own understanding, and therefore I can put it in my own essays. So this is my own essay, right? But then, see, I'll have, okay, Hassan's essay, he has euphemisms in here, and his paragraph is based off of that. I was like, oh, that's a new and interesting idea. So I would suggest, it's hard to come across a class where everyone's work is piled together, but if you have friends who are really good at essay writing, start talking with them more, start writing together, learn off of each other, because I think that's the most effective way for average students to do really, really well when you're working together. Okay, so once again, I like this idea. I highlighted the bits that I thought were interesting, or I thought that the quotes could be used in my essay, etc. So a lot of actual other people's essays that I didn't steal, but I definitely went through and found places that I liked about them. Now, let's go back. And then when it came to essay writing practice, I didn't do it on Notion. I wrote it on paper, and leading up to the exam, I probably wrote an essay every single day, just practicing, getting it down in writing a whole essay within 45 minutes or so. Because when you think about VCE English, you have a 3-hour exam to write 3 essays. So it's not actually a lot of time, and you have to practice writing on paper. Okay, so that's one thing that I did. I think that's about it for my Notion back in the day. Let's go on to my students' ones. Okay, theirs is a lot better than mine, I'd say. Okay, can you guys see my screen? Yes. So we focused on, since this is my own tutoring class, we've only focused on the thing around your neck, that one specific story in the book, okay? And this is all their work compiled together. So how we set it up was, all right, we have some good words that I think they could use in their essays. This isn't fully developed yet, as you can see. And we broke it up into a gallery view, showing different sort of activities that can help them gauge the text better. So we start with character profiles. And let me just go into why I would use character profiles in my Notion plan. It is because when you are writing essays, especially the book, The Thing Around Your Neck, a lot of the ideas are actually based off of characters and their own inner turmoil. And so you want to be able to literally psychoanalyze these characters and come up with, I guess, a little bit of analysis on them. So you feel like you can break down, okay, why do they act a certain way? What causes this behavior? And how does it impact them or other people? And that formulates like the basis of your analysis. So that's a really important point. That's why I always tell my students, you have to understand the text. Number one, understand the text well. Number two, you have to be able to break down logically, step by step, okay, who are these people? And try to understand the characters to a pretty solid level. Okay, so for instance, one of my students here, I told him, okay, do a bit of analysis for me. And he focused very specifically on a really interesting idea. Okay, he talked about, if you read here, there's the give and take culture. Basically, if I summarize this, it's women are more likely to use their sexuality to their advantage, to weaponize it in order to gain something. And what I asked him was, is this a form of female empowerment? And you might be thinking like, oh, that doesn't seem like it's related to the text that much. But you realize a lot across different texts, completely different texts in year 12 English, whatever year level English, if they're asking you about analysis, there's a few key themes, and gender is often one of them. Like gender roles, gender dynamics is often one of them. So understanding it well in one text will help you, formulate ideas in another text, because the ideas, if you break up, sort of focus on the big ideas, like if I say, weaponizing their sexuality is a form of empowerment. That's a very general statement, and that can be translated as a theme in other texts as well. So that's why I say, gender is a really big part of, I don't know, is usually a pretty common theme amongst English texts. So let's go back to here, sort of going off track. For this one, he basically talks about the give and take mentality, the give and take culture. And smart women eager for wealth will comply with selling their body, essentially. And I don't mean it in a completely prostitution. I mean in they will do things that weaponize their sexuality in order to gain something. So going in depth and sort of just analyzing, okay, what these characters are thinking, what these characters are feeling, why they act certain ways, whether you can relate it to their childhood, whether you can relate it to their upbringing, internal factors, external factors, that helps you formulate a lot of the analysis that you're going to do in your future essays. Okay, so that's why I always think understand your characters well. And another thing that's really important is your quote bank. And I really like using Notion for your quote bank because you can search using the search bar here. And you can also filter. Okay, so for instance, what I like to do, this is the format that I like to use. Okay, have your quotes over here and then describe it a little bit for me. Just literally tell me what the quote means, and then think about the themes. And then if you want to like say filter, you can, themes. You can literally pick what themes you're looking for, and it comes up really quickly. And then the page number. So my student, what she did here, which was really smart, page 1, middle, page 1 up, because sometimes you get lost in, that slab of text, and always write down the character themselves. So having a quote bank is really good for helping you being able to quickly pinpoint that quote that's like sort of on the tip of your tongue, okay? But I will say, don't rely, focus on quality over quantity. Don't pick a quote if you think it's useless. Pick a quote because you can tie it to a lot of different themes, and pick a quote because you think that it has a very important message, or it's valuable to use within your essay, and it's a strong piece of evidence to support a point. Okay, so make sure you pick and choose. I would say naturally, as you do the practice, as you write the practice essays, etc., it becomes a lot easier to pinpoint exactly what the quotes are, and helps you memorize it as well. Okay, so this is just for the quote bank, is really just for learning it at this beginning, sort of, doing a bit of practice, going through with the analysis as well. As you're picking the quote, you should be analyzing it as well. Okay, what can I link this to? But I think towards the end of actually taking your exam, you should have everything in your head. It should come naturally, the quotes, okay? If you know the text well enough, the quotes should come out naturally, okay? Let's go back here. And then themes. Okay, so what I did was I've got my different students and I put them into groups, and they've got a bit of analysis based off of the theme, say, just the major theme, say identity. And I told them, find me quotes, analyze it, and I'll actually have videos linked with them actually presenting it to the class. So the content is actually in video form. And they actually get pretty passionate and heated about it as well. So that's interesting for you guys to take a look at if you're interested. But you can do this by yourself, sort of pick one theme, find literally as much evidence as you can from the text to support an idea within the theme. So for instance, if we're talking about, what's a good one? Discrimination and loneliness as a theme. Okay, one thing, if I see, just a quick tip, if I see 2 ideas, discrimination and loneliness, my immediate thought is, how do I link these 2 together? Okay, so what I told my students to do, find me the quotes that link to these ideas, but also you should have some sort of argument for me, or you should be presenting what you think about this idea of loneliness and discrimination. So sometimes my students said, let's see, what did they say? And they're linking these ideas to self-esteem, lack of self-esteem, the lack of human connection, and they talk about the cause and effect of that. Okay, as a result of discrimination, what happens after that? Okay, well, people feel alienated, they feel lonely. That's a really simple observation, a really obvious cause and effect. But then what happens after that? Well, I'm going to go one step further and tell you, as a result of that loneliness, combined with the fact that you don't belong, that you don't fit in, what happens is that it often causes a sense of inferiority, which we see within the thing around your neck. And then you go further. Okay, well, this causes a loop now, because having that sense of inferiority means that you're likely to be a lot more cynical, okay? And you're not going to be willing to try and engage with other people in meaningful ways. And what does that do? Once again, it sort of leads back to the start, where it's like, you're not really helping, the minorities have a good reputation if everyone's sort of shut off and, acting in, I guess, more negative ways because they feel this inner turmoil, okay? And then you can tell me how it all comes full circle. So that's the level of analysis that you need to have. You have to really go down into jump through the cause and effects. Like if I'm going from point A to my destination D, I need to go through A, B, C, D, right? I have to do it step by step to get there. And you need to show me that within your analysis. And that's the place where people lose marks, because they jump from this, this one idea to an idea that's completely not linked. But in order to get those analysis marks, you need to be able to explain like the process of getting to that stage, okay? So yes, take a look at this, the themes, and now let's go through the essays. Okay, hi guys, welcome to part 2 of essay writing, and I have 2 different approaches, okay? So for the method 1, the way I'd do it is I'd start by doing a big brainstorm, okay? I'd compile as much evidence as I can that is related to the topic, and then from there you start grouping in your ideas, okay? And what this does is if you have like 5 quotes per se, so this is me gathering my evidence, right? If I have 5 quotes and I think that, okay, they go together in some way, then from those 5 quotes, can you come up with an argument? Okay, so this is why you group your ideas. This is to formulate your arguments. And then after you've got, 3 or 4 arguments that you like, now go back the other way and come up with a contention. Okay, so what this is doing is, okay, you've got as much of the information as you can, and now you're trying to put it all together so that you can come up with a solid plan where you can, is it clear enough? Okay, where you can sort of go from bottom to top. Yes, this is the bottom to top approach, okay? Now, the other method, as you can probably guess, is you start off with a contention. My markers work. You start off with a contention, okay? And then from there, you build your arguments. And then within each paragraph of your arguments, you should have your evidence, okay? This is related to quotes, events, symbols, etc. Okay, so that's how you should be thinking. Okay, which method do I prefer? And for me, it's interchangeable. Depending on the text, depending on how difficult the topic is, depending on how confident I am, I will use these ones in certain cases. For instance, if I am not very confident about a text at all, and I find that it's very hard for me to come up with a contention right off the bat, I will use this way. It's sort of like you're exploring the text as you're going through this brainstorming phase. Whereas this one is, if I'm already confident, I've done this, I like similar ideas, topic quite a few times, and I can immediately, bam, 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 come up with everything. So this way is faster, but this way helps you explore it if you ever get stuck or if you're confused. Okay, so now let's go back here. Jesus Christ. Okay, now I will show you guys what my students have done. So let me share screen. Notion essays. So let's go through this one. So the topic is, a lot of times, especially VCE English, they will give you a quote and then they'll give you like the topic itself, discuss, ... Okay, and then what you have to do is be able to answer the topic in essay form. So you thought everybody in America had a car and a gun. Your uncles and aunts and cousins thought so too. Reality can never live up to the fantasies and dreams of immigrants. Discuss. Okay, so the first step when I'm breaking down a topic is you identify the key terms. And a lot of people skip over this step because it's like, oh, I know what these words mean. But what I mean by identifying the key terms, it's related to the second step actually, is you should be thinking about, okay, what ideas can I relate this to? So for instance, the quote isn't super important. It'll be nice to mention it in your essay, use it as a piece of evidence, but you don't have to. Okay, reality is a big one. How do I highlight? Okay, it doesn't let me highlight on here. Give me 1 sec. So I'll paste it here so I can highlight. Oh, there we go. So you can see that my students have already highlighted. I think I'll also highlight reality as well. Reality, never live up to fantasies and dreams of immigrants. So it's pretty straightforward. Now, what I'm going to talk about is focusing on these ideas. I want to really talk about, okay, how is reality different to their expectations? When I see fantasies and dreams of immigrants, I think, what are their expectations? So that's the idea that I'm linking it to that makes it easier for me to come up with my contention and arguments later on, okay? And the big question behind this isn't, okay, like you're saying yes or no to this, reality can never live up to the fantasies and dreams of immigrants. I want you to focus on why that's the case. So you have to break down the essay topic. A lot of the times, an essay topic may seem very simple, but you have to actually go into the steps of why or how, and you have to talk about the effects of it. So you really have to delve deep and ask yourself some extra questions as well to build your sort of understanding of the text. So let's take a look. After we've done these first two steps, this is the second method that I showed you guys on the board. We go through with planning out our contention and then planning out our body paragraphs. So what I do is start off with a contention. And what I want to talk about in this case is, okay, what is it that's making it hard, or like why is there such a difference between the reality and the expectations of these immigrants, right, when they come to America? What I said was the misguided illusion of the American dream. That is my reason for it. And so now my whole essay has to focus on the basis of this American dream. And it has to talk about how it's misguided and is almost, in a sense, delusional. That is what I want to focus on within my entire essay, right? And as you see now, you can see that instead of writing, dreams and fantasies, I changed it to expectations, because I think that is a more accurate depiction of what I will be talking about in this essay, even though expectations is also related to the fantasies and dreams of these immigrants, because you have to have these expectations to be able to have these fantasies and dreams, okay? So body paragraph 1, my argument is the glamorized portrayal of the American dream stems from people's fantasies that help them cope with their current undesirable situations back home. I am giving you a reason why we have this American dream illusion, okay? So what I'm saying here is basically, a lot of times you realize people have this glorified image of the American dream or whatever. It's a form of hope, okay? They are living in undesirable situations and having this, almost this illusion that, perhaps if you win the lottery, if you get lucky, you can have that sort of lifestyle. That in itself serves a purpose in their life to cope with their current situation. That's what I'm trying to explain here. And then what I said to my students, you have to find a quote and sort of explain what that quote means, okay? So what I would use to sort of back up this point is her family and how they're very, very misguided in the views that they have about America, okay? And then that will serve as a backbone or like the evidence to support my point here. Now, body paragraph 2, due to the discrimination, I'll highlight it, due to the discrimination they face as immigrants in America, the discrimination they face in America as immigrants shatters their perception of the American dream. And now I talk about it. What else like causes them to have, to be so disappointed when they come to America? Well, one of them is literally the discrimination that they face. And there's a lot that can go into this paragraph, okay? From the way that people look at the main character, Akuna, or the way she feels like she's being taken advantage of, exploited by her manager because she's an immigrant and so he can pay her less. These are things that sort of, I guess it's reality showing that the American dream is not all that people made it seem like it was back home, okay? And the third one, as their expectations finally align with the harsh reality, individuals' own inner conflict stifle their ability to achieve the already out of reach American dream. Okay, big idea here. What I'm saying is, so you first come to America, back at home, this is body paragraph 1, back at home, this is how we saw the American dream. Now I'm in America. This is how so my mentality or my perception of what my life is going to be like in America shifts because I'm facing that discrimination. Now that I've been here for a while and my expectations sort of align with reality, what happens is now in my own inner turmoil sort of restricts me from achieving my own dreams. So what I mean by this is the third body paragraph is really talking about the loss of hope. Okay. And also, what I mean by their own inner conflict is you can see that Akuna, she herself has this very paranoid mentality. She herself has an inferior complex that was caused by her facing that discrimination. Okay. And as a result, I think I've mentioned this before, she becomes more cynical. And what happens when you're becoming more cynical is like it's hard for you to create good relationships with people. She doesn't seem to be striving for a lot of her dreams or ambition. She seems to be really held back by a lot of the things that are going on around her, like dealing with her family issues. What else? Dealing with like feeling secure whilst with her boyfriend is also one of her problems. So you can see that now that reality hits, she has to face her own self, her own mentality. How's that stopping her from achieving the American dream? That's already hard to achieve. And so that is what you want to talk about in this paragraph. Now let's see some of my students. This is my students' ones. Let's see. So I told them to just write a contention. The thing around your neck depicts the stories of African immigrants who have false fantasies. Okay, this one's similar to my one. Let's see, James. Okay, the thing around your neck portrays an unrealistic reality for African immigrants and how they experience hardships led by current society perspectives grounded in ignorance. Okay, what he's trying to say here is this is talking about discrimination because we're talking about society's perspectives that are grounded in ignorance. And you'll realize that a lot of times this sort of discrimination, racism, etc., comes from a place of ignorance. So he's focusing his essay on discrimination. Okay, so that's one of the prompts that we've been through. Let's see. This is another one. Oh, this one's a bit. Okay, I'll just quickly go through the contentions for this one because I think the most important thing about essay writing is figuring out your contention and your arguments. Because if you don't have a strong base, even if you have good evidence, even if you're good at writing, your essay isn't really saying anything. So make sure the one thing you need to practice isn't really getting the vocab down. That's not super important, but get your ideas down in a clear, concise manner so that people understand what you're trying to say. And when I talk about essay writing, I want you guys to focus on having this sort of flow, okay? Each argument should sort of build off of each other if you can, okay? And as you write your essay, when you get to the conclusion, you should show that your ideas have become more developed, or you should show that you've learned something and there's a progression throughout your essay, okay? So once again, same steps as before. The topic is you felt invisible. How does social alienation affect characters in The Thing Around Your Neck? Okay, this is a very simplistic one. Let's start off with the contention. The Thing Around Your Neck captures the difficulties of immigrants trying to become accustomed to the American society whilst highlighting the negative impact of social alienation on their personal growth. Okay, so this is talking about, well, I want to link social alienation to how it affects individuals and their ability to sort of, I guess, improve themselves, right? But first, I want to explain why people, okay, I've got two ideas in this body paragraph. The first one is explaining, okay, why people discriminate. And like we mentioned a lot of times before, it is a result of ignorance, dealing with unfamiliarity, people fill in the gaps, and sometimes make very rude comments, right? Okay, but now I go on to the effect. See how I have why plus the effect in my argument. If you ever get confused, use this to help you sort of flesh out your argument itself. So exposure to this feeling can cause individuals to feel inferior. And so you see that a lot throughout the text in the thing around your neck, because there are a lot of times where it's not directly mentioned that Akuna feels inferior, but the way she behaves, the way she reacts, the way she perceives certain, I guess, situations shows that she has this feeling of inferiority. And you want to be able to find those places and explain it in a clear and concise manner that is linking step by step within your paragraphs, okay? As a result of dealing with the inferiority complex, see how I'm linking it back to my previous one? It's sort of, there's like a progression and there's a flow to it, okay? So that's how you come up with a really good and strong essay plan. People are less likely to be able to reach out and create meaningful relationships. And this is another one, another contention with the same idea, not contention, I mean argument. Negative factors caused by alienation harbor a resentful and paranoid perception of people, hindering the ability to develop meaningful relationships with each other. So this is not as obvious that I'm linking to the previous, but it's got the same idea as this body paragraph here. It's just different wording, okay? Once again, what we're saying here is because if you feel inferior, you'll realize that people aren't going to, act super confident and talk to people, and you're not going to reach out to people. And if you have this paranoid perception of people, like I mentioned here, as a result of that inferior complex, what happens is you, as I mentioned here, can't develop meaningful relationships with others. And that further adds to the feeling of like not belonging, okay? Which is a really big idea within the thing around your neck. It's like Akuna has this inner turmoil. Okay, she feels like she can't fully, integrate herself into the American society. Yet at the same time, she can't really stay true to herself and her roots, okay? So that's an idea that you can explore as well. And I think it's quite interesting too. And body paragraph 3, as a result of rejecting, see how it's linked together? Okay, please try your best to link it, okay? As a result of rejecting relationships, people are more likely to feel isolated, which stifles opportunities for personal development. And you want to talk about how, maybe you talk about her relationship with her boyfriend, how her negative perception of him at times stops her from actually, being able to teach him, when he wants to go to Nigeria with her, she immediately is like, no. Perhaps you could say this event could have led to, them having a better understanding of each other. The fact that he wanted to try and understand her roots better, things like that. Okay, so you want to figure out some quotes that go in here as well. These are just some notes. Okay, now let's go into actually writing. So let me just share screen. So we have a different topic now. Assumptions and stereotypes held by people cause a great deal of disappointment. So what we're saying here is that cause a great deal of disappointment. First step, always highlight the key words. So obviously assumptions, stereotypes, great deal of disappointment are your keywords. And now a lot of students, when they get a topic like this, they're thinking like, oh, you're just going to sort of group assumptions and stereotypes together. A lot of times they'll just think of, oh, I'll just talk about discrimination my whole essay. But that's not necessarily correct, because assumptions are based off of like the individual. As an individual, I can make assumptions. That's how I would perceive it, right? But stereotypes is held by a group of people. It's a generalization about a group of people, typically minorities. And that's what you sort of need to differentiate that in between your essay, okay? Now, basically what I got my students to do here was come up with some contentions that they think could be used in line with this topic. So I'll just quickly go through some ones that I think are pretty good. This one is one we've talked about. Stereotyping and preconceived notions about others stems from unfamiliarity, which hinders people from getting to know each other properly. Once again, this is talking about the American dream. And I'm very purposeful with my actual, the words that I use, the glamorized American dream. That's telling me that the American dream is this sort of, I guess, misguided ideal. It's not what reality actually shows, okay? And I'm saying that it serves as hope for those, but this fantasy is crushed when they're met with reality, because we know that America doesn't live up to the American dream fantasy, okay? So my student did this in all caps lock, so I had to fix it through later. The effect of stereotypes formed around a particular culture on individuals will make them feel insecure. Very straightforward. Stereotypes make people feel insecure, okay? Negative assumptions may stem from personal inadequacies that stagnate relationships. I really like this one. This is talking about assumptions in general. This is sort of, taking a different approach from just discrimination and racism. We're talking about assumptions, how you see other people, how you view, I guess, your interactions with other people. Because as human beings, we're always making assumptions about other people. We're always projecting judgment, right? And what this is saying, okay, if it's negative, it may be coming from a sense of like personal inadequacy. And that, as a result, it stagnates relationships. So this sort of topic sentence, the framework that I used was you telling me why or how we may have these negative assumptions. And then you tell me the effect of that, which is that it stagnates relationships, okay? This is me fixing one of the topic sentences. Facing the reality of being a migrant in America, the pressure to fulfill the American dream from back home increases their anxiety. So this is talking, once again, not contentions, these are like arguments. So this is talking about the reality of being a migrant and then relating to the American dream, how that increases their anxiety, which leads to disappointment. So it's sort of, you can really easily make these links. So that's a good argument to have. Families' expectations of the American dream causes pressure for people suffering from the reality of it, which contributes to a sense of segregation. So similar ideas to the other ones. Okay, having preconceived notion towards others makes one more paranoid about how others view them, which causes unease. So this is talking about, okay, so I think when it comes to this topic, there's two different ways that you can, like two major areas I would focus on. The assumptions that you make on other people in your daily interactions versus like the actual stereotyping, the racism outcome from stereotyping, racist outcome from stereotyping. And so this one is talking about, individuals making these sort of judgments on others. This is talking about how if I judge other people critically, if I see the world through a critical lens, then naturally I will also think that others see me in such a light, okay? And this causes unease, which helps you link back to the topic of greater disappointment, okay? Two very simple ones here. The stereotypes that people hold each other to create materialistic and insincere relationships. So these are some easy sort of places that you can go find evidence for. The materialism, that's a big sort of chunk of what they talk about in the thing around your neck. And the insincere relationships, I think the boyfriend and Akuna actually, their relationship is not necessarily the strongest or the most genuine, okay? And you can explore that in detail with this argument. People's perceptions of other people are biased, whether they are trying to be genuine or not. Okay, bias, I really like this one, where it's like how you see other people is going to be influenced by your own internal factors. So let's go down to this one. This one is the one I'll go through here. Stereotypes hinder the growth and development of personal identity, which leads to disappointment. This is the argument that I will be talking about. And so I've got my argument topic sentence down. Now I literally just brainstorm. What sort of evidence do I need to put in here? Okay, so here's some examples here, and then I'll go back and find the quotes using a quote bank or something. So stereotypes hinder the growth and development of personal identity, which leads to disappointment. So this was a paragraph half a paragraph that we wrote in literally 5 minutes, okay? We timed it. The effect of Akuna being a product of stereotyping has a deep internal impact on her as she struggles to come to terms with being perceived in such a way. Okay, so we are focusing mainly on Akuna and how she deals with these stereotypes. I want to explain first, like, I want to do it in a 3-step process, or like a many-step process. The first step is like her dealing with the racism, the stereotyping, right? The fact that they gawped at her hair. Okay, what happens? How does she sort of internalize this stereotype? Dealing with this sort of discrimination, it's that sense of inferiority as well as resentment. Because the reason why is because she can't really align herself into the American culture. She doesn't feel like she belongs. Okay. And then as a result of feeling like she doesn't belong, here we have her paranoid mentality is a byproduct of her inferiority complex, as she is overly sensitive to other people's comments. And you see this. Like when I was reading the text, the thing around your neck, what I realized is that, some people may genuinely think, oh, her and her boyfriend are a good-looking pair. But what her first instinct is to assume that they're being overly nice, that they're not being genuine, that these people don't actually believe that. Because she herself, she has that sense of inferiority. She can't believe herself that people see her and her boyfriend as like a compatible pair, okay? And so once again, you have to continuously explain, oh, this critical mentality, which is spelled very wrong, mentality stemming from a combination. So I sort of want to link back to all the ideas that I mentioned before, a combination of paranoia, disappointment, and hurt. Now I have to link to this part, personal identity, right? Now, if you look here, become a part of her identity which hinders her growth as an individual. Does that make sense? So essay writing takes a lot of practice, but if you do it sentence by sentence, focus on just getting one sentence out and always think, okay, am I relating this to the topic? Am I explaining my idea in detail? Am I using the quotes and evidence, right? Am I analyzing the effect of, say, maybe what she's going through? Then that will make a strong paragraph. Does that make sense? All right, I think that's it from me today.